I'm Matt Pittman, CEO and pitmaster of Meat Church. Throughout my barbecue life, I've been lucky enough to make some amazing relationships with some of the top pitmasters in the world. For this series, I've convinced them to share with you guys some of their best kept secrets. So fire up your pits, it's time to meet the masters. Hey guys, Matt with Meat Church. Well, I'm here in Houston at my buddy Leonard's barbecue joint, Truth BBQ, rated number 3 on the famous Texas Monthly Top 50 Barbecue Joints list. It's quite the feat because Truth has 2 locations, one here in Houston and one in Brenham, and they have clearly not lost any quality whatsoever. Well, Leonard and I have talked about this video for a long time, and I couldn't be more excited. We're talking all things brisket. The amount of tips you're gonna get out of this video and how he cooks his brisket, I'm telling you, it's gonna be the best video we do all year. So let's head inside and see what Leonard's up to.
Bread, pickles, and onions all included.
All right, guys, we're here in the smokehouse with the best looking man in barbecue, Leonard. Dude, appreciate you letting us come out to talk brisket.
No, thanks for coming out. We've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah. Well, what we've been talking about specifically is I always say there's so many different ways to skin a cat when it comes to cooking barbecue, and particularly in brisket. So we've had a lot of back and forth about different ways to do things, but man, let's just jump in and tell us how you're doing things these days.
Yeah, like you said, there's no right or wrong way to do it as long as you're satisfied at the end. This is the way we do it at Truth. This is basically your traditional Packer brisket. We use all Creekstone Master Chef Prime. I just like those because they got a nice amount of fat on them. There's no scalping. They got a lot to work with. This is going to be our final product. As you can see how rounded everything is. Want to make it nice and aerodynamic. Don't want to have too many scalping or bald spots on there. We try to refrain from doing that.
It looks like we trim very similarly, so I mean.
Yeah, I like all the I like everything being rounded off, because if you know, if you think about, like, if you got wings in there, it's just getting hammered with heat the entire time in the pit. So we try to cut all that down. We just use straight up French's is my preference. Heinz is all right if you need that. Just slather a little bit on the back here.
So, and I grew up in the South, and we put mustard on our pork. We didn't know what the heck brisket was where I came from, so I love it when I see a mustard slather in the heart of Texas, in Houston, on a brisket.
A lot of people think that the mustard actually tenderizes the brisket. I couldn't tell you. I mean, there's so many myths out there. Like, they always like, it's all tall tales or whatever you want to call it. I've never noticed that a brisket gets a little more tender with mustard, but it
just
it helps,
a binder for you.
Yeah, it helps a binder. I've noticed that if I don't use it, the stuff starts to tend to flake off a lot more. So I just want to start with a nice, really good bark. And like we were talking about earlier, this is all just salt, pepper, garlic, onion. Super simple.
So you bust the myth again that the best barbecue in Texas isn't necessarily just salt and pepper.
No. I mean,
a lot of salt and pepper.
Yeah, a lot of salt and pepper. I like all of our proteins, especially the beef ones, to taste like a good steak, like if you're going to steakhouse. So that's like kind of where I'm going at with this. You want to keep it really simple and just very beef forward or pork forward.
I like it. So you're already blowing our mind again, because you're holding the shaker what I call upside down, which is what our buddy Dane did, and it made me and all my friends question, have we been seasoning wrong our entire lives?
I don't know how I started doing this. It just seemed like I was like dumping out too much at a certain time.
That's the secret right there.
And sometimes we'll even cut out some of the holes and like just have one hole in the middle, and it makes it a little bit easier.
Man.
But you know, you want to get like a nice Dalmatian, salt and pepper looking.
There's a very professional, even shake you got going here.
Yeah, you want to make sure that everything goes on nice and neat to help build that bark. A lot of people think that the bark is burnt, but it's actually a chemical reaction that happens with the salt and the fats rendering down and just building that really, really nice color. So we want to have everything like super uniform, so you're getting the same bite in every bite.
I love it.
Yeah.
If this whole true thing doesn't work out for you, you got a future at Meat Church with those seasoning skills.
I could just be your demo guy, like for all this seasonings.
It's not a very good paying position, but anyway, keep it in mind.
Well, I don't have a backup plan for barbecue, so I might need to take you up on that.
All right, so let's talk about how long do you let it adhere before we talk about how you cook it?
So it kind of transitioned I was always like super nervous, like if it sat overnight, it was going to get too salty. But with the kosher salt in there, it's not enough to penetrate the muscle or anything like that. So we'll usually season them the night before, just so that everybody's not super scattered in here, loading up 100 briskets on the pit. And
wait. You're cooking how many briskets on the weekend?
If there's up to 100 briskets or more on the pit, it gets a little hairy when people are seasoning and trimming and making sausage.
I just got to say, like, you know, it's crazy, like the amount of knowledge people can get on YouTube and videos. You're cooking 100 briskets a day on the weekend.
Giant game of Tetris every day.
Insane. Impressive.
Yeah.
All right, so we're obviously not going to let these sit overnight because we're making a video, so we're going to put it on. But if I had to come in last night, let this sit overnight, we come in today, where do you go from there?
So we're going to pull these bad boys out of the cooler, let them sit out for about an hour so they can get it pretty close to room temperature. So that way when we're throwing them on the pit, they're not seizing up, going straight into that heat. And we'll go fatties towards the fire, and we'll ramp that fire up just to get to 275, because if you go straight into 275, it kind of...
What temperature you like to start at?
225 or so.
Okay.
And we'll do every hour up until we get to there, just so it can kind of coast into there and kind of help the muscle relax and break down at the right rate.
I feel like it's like a spa for your brisket.
Yeah.
Just let it relax.
Just kind of, they just tend to, you'll see a lot of that curling and that seizing up if you throw it right on there. So we kind of like, we want everything to be super uniform. And, you know, when we're cooking that many briskets a day, we really baby them a lot. And sometimes a lot of people will say we'll do extra steps, like when we're rotating, we're spritzing, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, in this, consistency is the name of the game. And we want the customers to think that every brisket is the exact same.
That's this crazy thing, you know, that I don't think people can quite grasp of what you're having to do. You're cooking 100 of these a day, and every bite has to be banging.
Yeah.
Every bite. It from 11 a.m. to sell out, whenever that is, every slice of this brisket, of those 100 briskets, all have to be dead on.
Yeah, so I'll be 100% honest with you. You, of course, know that not every cow is going to be the same. They're all going to eat different. They're going to have more fat, less fat, blah, 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 blah. The positions in the pit room are just as important as the guys cutting the meat, because those are the gatekeepers. They know exactly what to serve, what not to serve. Not every brisket's going to be the same. It's our job to get them as close as they can, but you know, sometimes cows are stubborn and one's a little more lean, one's a little bit fatty. Of course, we want the fattier ones, but these guys are so particular about what they're serving. Yeah,
for sure. All right, well, I guess we're headed out to the pit. I mean, you got lots of pits here running for the restaurant today, but you and I both are big fans of mill scale, and you've got a very sexy 1,000-gallon mill scale out there that I think that we should cook on today.
Yeah, that's my baby.
All right, well, let's head out there.
All right.
This is a good-looking mill scale, by the way.
So, start to finish, we're going to load from the back all the way to the front. We're going to go fatties towards the fire, and then your muscular fat's a lot heavier than the stuff in the back, so we're going to have to break all that stuff down. We're going to let this guy go untouched for about 5 hours, let that bark really start to build.
Love it. So we're about 5 hours in. What do we got going now?
So typically when we're cooking, about 5 hours in is when we start to like foil and assess like what we're looking for essentially. You can see this is a little bit darker than over here. You got this puddling over here. You definitely don't want that because it'll keep you from building that bar. This is the point, this is the flat. We're going point towards the fire, so we're gonna wanna foil up these front parts right here. And I always like to just go like that, make a little bit of hat on there. You can kind of see on this edge right here, this is a lot thinner. I always tell people, like, think about throwing a pork chop in a really hot pan. It starts to curl up really bad. Same thing with this. You're gonna wanna protect that and get these flats to lay down again. So what we'll do is we'll just cap the bottom of it. And we don't do it too tight because we're just looking for that protection, and we still wanna build that bark. About 4 or 5 hours in is when you can start to notice, like, if you're rubbing it, the seasoning's not coming off. If you do it too early, it'll start to peel off, and you just want to make sure that that bark is like really set before you start messing with it.
And you never put anything underneath, any foil underneath your briskets or anything like that?
No, since we're looking for like that real natural convection in these offsets versus like a reverse flow or like other types of pits that have some metal on the bottom, we want to get like everything super uniform, and we don't want the bottom to like steam out or cook a little bit faster than the top or the front or the back. So we try to keep everything as consistent as possible. And at this point, we'll start rotating the briskets on and off the walls and backwards, because here, the doors and the walls are going to be your more radiant heats, and you want everything to cook at the right rate. Here. Yeah. So we just start weaving everything in and out every hour from now on.
Awesome. So we're going to let these ride, and we'll check back in 2-3 hours and see if we're ready to wrap.
Yeah. So we got the fresh one on. This one should be about ready to wrap about 8 hours in, give or take.
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
Smells awesome. Whew, look at that bark. So you've got a little bit of foil just for protection there from the heat.
On the front and the back, keep from the curling, protect the front of them, because we go points towards the fire for the most of the cook, and we'll flip it around to kind of even everything out. So we don't want this guy to get too damaged, because it'll start to tear up during the when it gets on the block. If it gets too crispy or anything like that, I'm sure you felt it.
Yeah. Well, let's go wrap it. All right, let's wrap this baby up.
Yes, sir. So we like to use 18-inch butcher paper over 24. I just feel like you can get a better wrap all around with it. I'm sure you know that too. So
I'm a fan of that. The Meat Church butcher paper is 18 inches.
Can you get it online?
You have to get it at our barbecue splash shop. It's a destination.
Even better. I go over there to get it. Here we go. So we're gonna pop these foil pieces off real quick. Oh. Whoop, whoop.
Hold on, I'm gonna come on this side.
Spritz everything down pretty heavy. We use all apple cider vinegar.
I can smell it.
Yes, sir. We're usually looking for about 170, 175 degrees inside, internally. That tends to be a sweet spot when we're wrapping up, just to not too many of the fats are rendered out. Usually, typically, if you go over 180, it'll tend to be a little bit drier. If you go under 170, like low 160s, you'll have a really kind of funky white texture. The upside of that is you'll have a ton of fat that's rendered out in the paper. So when you're unwrapping it, you see all that dumping out, but then on the backside, you have that kind of nasty looking white fat, and that's not what we're looking for. We want it to be nice and caramelized. Like, you can pinch this guy apart right here and you can see like that nice yellowing that we're looking for. So you can't really always go off of temperature. You want it to be like nice and soft, and you want to have the right fat colors and the right color on the brisket. This one's a little bit lighter than normally what we would have. Kind of sped this cook up a little bit for video.
The magic of TV.
It still feels really good. It's really nice. When we're probing like directly in the center when it hits that little muscle in the middle, right in that break between the lean and the fatty. You want it to feel like butter. You don't want it to slide all the way through. A little bit of resistance on there. Then we're gonna spritz like super aggressive. And the reason that we like to use apple cider vinegar, I prefer it versus like apple juice or anything like that. You got to be really careful with the sugars that are in there. They'll start to caramelize and burn up a little bit. Apple cider will keep that bark from sticking to the paper on you. I've seen with Worcestershire, my briskets have really fluctuated in salt. Like if the sediment sits on the bottom of the squirt bottle, and you'll season all the briskets the same, and then they'll have different flavor profiles just from that. So I found that apple cider works the best.
Huge tips. We just spritz our paper with cider vinegar. I don't actually usually spritz my brisket, so that's a good tip.
So a lot of people, are like worried about the bark getting kind of soft, but if you're letting your bark like really build at the beginning part of the cook and set in, it's going to hold up. And you have to remember that heat's also attracted, heat and smoke are attracted to moisture. So we're still trying to get this brisket penetrated with smoke through the paper.
Right.
The only reason that we're wrapping this brisket up is because we want it to be protected when we're rendering out those last fats in there. And that huge fat band in the middle and that intermuscular fat on the fatty is going to be super hard to render out at 275 degrees. So we're going to bump it to 300 and kind of crank it up to help cooking that rest of that fat out. We always go across the top like this, and then basically almost like a paper football. We'll tuck the bottom right here, We'll tuck the bottom right here. And the reason that we do this is this kind of like serves as like almost like a paper boat method. So all those fats that are rendering out, if you have to unwrap the brisket to feel it, like if you're not comfortable like with just probing, it allows those fats not to pour out. It'll hold everything in. But also if we really need to get in there and like, we're talking like 5-10 minutes more on the pit and we need to see if that lean or the fatty are broken down, it allows us to get our hands in the bottom in there and kind of like really get a good feel in there. Because yeah, we're going for temperature, but we're more so going for feel. The temperature is more of a guideline.
Like a sanity.
Yeah, because every brisket's gonna be different. Every cook's gonna be different. You know how it is.
First person that told me that was Jordan Jackson back when he's at Franklin's now. Back when he was at Bodacious, he showed me how to reach in and grab it. And
it's a lifesaver.
It's tough for people at home, I think, sometimes because, you know, they're not doing a gajillion briskets a day like you guys are. So it just takes time and experience. So that's one of the huge benefits of having you do this is there's a lot of people that make YouTube videos. There's not a lot of people cooking the amount of briskets you're cooking every day and knowing that feel.
Yeah. So I like to tell people it's like almost like a wet sponge. Like, it's like super spongy on the bottom, but with a sponge, you couldn't really push your finger through all the way, like until you like to break the sponge. That's what you're looking for. If like you can easily stick your finger through the bottom of the brisket, it's going to be overcooked. If you have like way too much resistance and you're like punching it, it's still got some time.
Yeah, those are all killer tips. Say let's go put it back in the smoker and finish it up.
Let's go.
All right. What are we looking for now for the rest of the cook?
So we're gonna go leans towards the fire, just since those fatties are getting hammered the entire time. That tighter muscle on the lean side is gonna take a little more heat, just to kind of even everything out. We're gonna bump the pit to about 300 degrees. If you're doing it at home, I normally say to like cook around 225, 250. Don't go any higher than 265, 275. That'll just really help render out the rest of those fats. About an hour, we'll check them. We'll check all the briskets, and then we'll start going in 20-minute intervals and peeling the bottoms of them. I've found out that 20 minutes is like not too much to overcook something, but it's enough to like get it there.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a sweet spot. Sometimes if you go 30 minutes in that 300-degree heat, it's just like pushes it over the edge, and then you got cat food at the end.
Awesome. Let's go check the fire.
Yeah.
All right. It's been about an hour and a half or so since we wrapped this brisket.
Yeah, let's check it out. So you can see the paper is starting to get nice and saturated. We're looking for like feel. You see like this has a nice little resistance on it, almost kind of like a little balloon.
Yeah.
Then we're going into the middle, making sure everything feels like nice and uniform through here. You don't want this to be like too soft right here on that fatty, or it'll just be mush. When we're temping the briskets out, we're going like right in that bottom of that lean right there and peeling. We're not really going for temp, we're going for like how snug it is. And that's what we're looking for.
You feel good about this one?
Yeah, it feels good. Like I said, now the paper's like all nice and situated. So if you really got to get in there, you can really just like feel right there.
It's a huge tip.
Yeah.
Woo, looks good.
So that's what I was talking about.
Jiggly.
Nice.
All right, so
check the bottom of it. We can wrap it back up and let them cool with the other guys.
So let's talk about your rest, which I think that's super key as we take this into rest. What do you like to do from here?
So like, again, we were talking about every cow is always different. All these briskets are not gonna be the same size. So we trim them down to about 10, 11 pounds to get them all the same shape and size. So that way they're all coming out at the same time. But a lot of people make the mistake of letting the brisket cool down for a certain amount of time. But you know, this size brisket versus one that's 10 more pounds is not gonna be able to cool down at the same rate. So we cool them down to about 140 degrees internally, right where I temped it out for you. So right in the middle, 140, 145 degrees. Anything lower, the fats are gonna start to solidify and they'll struggle more to get soft again. anything higher, the brisket's gonna continue to cook. So when we put these bad boys in the warmer's set at 140 degrees. We're just basically letting them sit at that.
You're gonna let it sit on this sheet tray at ambient temperature down to 140, then you're going in your warmer.
Then we are.
And how long are you gonna ride in the warmer? All night?
Yeah, probably about 8 hours or so. I used to go overnight and like get it as close as I could, like resting it down to 140 degrees and then put it in the warmer and cut into it. And you know, one day you're tired, one day you had too many drinks, blah, 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 and you're trying to get some more sleep. The quality actually gets better when it's in the warmer. It gets nice and humid in there. It helps those muscles relax a little bit more, softer. The only issue is the longer that it sits in the warmer, the faster it oxidizes. So you gotta find that really sweet spot of not resting too long, but resting long enough.
All right, well, let's take it in and rest it because it's about time to eat.
All right. So I didn't want to have you wait for the full rest time, so we have one ready for you.
I appreciate that, it's so thoughtful.
So we wrap everything with cellophane once we pull it off the pit, because as you can see, all that fat that's still kind of caught in there. I didn't start doing that until after events, and I got tired of cleaning out the Yetis every time when I'm ready to go home. Let's see how much it catches
Crazy.
in there.
Yeah, you would have just lost that all in the cooler.
Yeah.
Beauty. Damn, that looks good.
Let's go into it.
Ooh, it's like a waterfall.
Okay, I see those nice burn ends.
Perfectly rendered.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming out of retirement to get on the block for me. I know you got people to do this for you. I mean, like you talked about the fat, man, it looks good.
So we have this ongoing joke between me and Burt Backman out of LA because, like I said, that has so much fat in it, so we put it against the door. And we'll always send each other this guy right here.
The 4th slice.
This is the first one. Of course it's gonna be good because there's so much fat in there.
Yeah.
So he's like, we started saying to each other, like, go to the 4th one.
I wondered where the 4th slice
Let's
came
see
from.
what the 4th one looks like, because that's what turns boys to men, if you can go all the way through.
Damn.
As you can see, these guys from end to end are pretty solid.
All right, while you're finishing slicing this, I'm gonna go get a beer and a seat.
Yes, sir.
I'll meet you over there.
I'll meet you over there.
That looks awesome.
Oh, not too shabby.
Man, look how pretty this tray is. But star of the show just packed in here.
All brisket.
Man, I gotta tell you, it looks unbelievable. Like that I said earlier when you were slicing it, that perfectly rendered fat. I mean, how, look, we'll just go in what you said, how the 4th slice held together, like, looks legit. I'm ready to get in here.
Let's dig in.
All right, I'm just gonna reach in. Is that all right? I've got a fork here. Look at that right there. Oh yeah. I don't need a fork, I'm just gonna rip it open with my hands like a caveman. Dude. Stupid. Damn. Dude, nailed it. That's the best brisket I'll have all year. Period. Hey, you're not going to talk about it, but there's a reason you're ranked so high on that famous list. But I know it's not all about that, but you're killing it, man. To have 2 locations to be pumping out this sort of quality on a daily basis, I actually don't think I've ever heard a negative thing said about Truth, which is saying something.
Dude, teamwork makes the dream work. It's not just me. We owe a lot to these guys in the back. They do a killer job, and without them, we wouldn't. I mean, it's all about, you know, we're all about one big happy family here. And so many people touch this brisket before it's done.
Yeah.
Got to keep everybody on the same page.
It's pretty crazy. You had different guys trimming and cooking and slicing, and
Yeah.
I mean, I watched all the customers, and like they make sure everything they give out is perfect. Like it's an operation. You guys got to come down here to Truth in Houston or Brenham, for that matter. Well, man, I appreciate it. Like, if you loaded us up with so many tips. I know the Meat Church congregation appreciates it, so I appreciate you having us out.
Thanks for coming out, man. We really enjoyed having you. It was a good time.
All right, well, you know what? I'm gonna get in on these sides too while we're at it. So Thanks, man. Man, that was awesome. And let's talk about that cook and those tips. By the way, no tallow. Been telling you, tallow's not the #1 secret. There wasn't 1 ounce of tallow used in that cook, and that's the best brisket I'm gonna have all year. But you guys picked up a lot from this. That mustard slather, what it did to help build the bark, foiling the tips of the brisket, rotating it around against your heat source to help render the fat, and that rest. The rest is just as crucial as the cook. I'm telling y'all, that brisket's gonna be the best brisket I had all year, and that's the truth.